What are you saying, YouTube? Today's the day. I'm hopefully going to be fixing the idle issue on my Fiesta ST. So if you haven't already seen, my Fiesta has a slight idle issue where when you come back down on the revs it will stick at about 1k, sometimes a bit more, and then come back down. And we've cleaned the throttle body, that didn't fix it. We changed the intake piping, that didn't fix it. Now what we've tracked it down to, we think, is a PCV valve, or the PCV hose, sorry. I've got the replacement valve as well, so we're going to be changing that today. So this job's made a little bit more difficult by the fact that you have to take the inlet manifold off. So it's basically hidden underneath kind of the inlet manifold, and it's connected to the inlet manifold, so you have to get that off to change the part. So it's a little bit more of a job than kind of most things I've done on this car. To get it done, I'm following a video from this guy. He's called Craig's DIY Car. There you go, there's channel there. There's the video name. If you're looking to get the inlet manifold off of the ST150 or the Mondeo Focus, then follow this guide. So this is today's setup. We've got a chair for when it gets a bit, or when you get a stiff back. Got a radiator because it's a little bit cold outside today. We've got the Mac so we can follow the video. Got the music station and the tools, cup of tea, some paper towels, Sharpie, tape, and the replacement parts. So this is the part that's actually gone on the car. I've got a replacement from Rose Motorsport, or Ruse, R-O-S-E. I'm not too sure how it's pronounced. But whilst I'm down there, I'm going to change the valve as well, because people have recommended that. So yeah, we're replacing this and this. We've got the Sharpie and the tape here just because you have to take a fair few electrical connectors from the loom out of their connector. So I'm just going to label them up so I know where they've come from. Gave the car a nice clean yesterday. Yesterday I did the video where I debadged it and added the black ST badge. I think it looks really nice, especially now it's clean. So to show you what the actual issue is, I'll quickly start the car up. Now apparently what happens is the hose is collapsed or it's split, so it lets more air in, and the ECU reads that as an air coming into the system, so it obviously adds more fuel, and that makes it rev or stick. I'm literally just tapping the accelerator, and then I'm off the accelerator now. See how it helped at like 1.5 there. It's currently high at the moment just because the engine's cold. They start a little bit higher. They idle a little bit higher at the beginning just to warm up the engine. But can you see how it just sticks? Like then especially, it's literally just, don't know if you can see my foot there, off the accelerator. Yeah, and it sticks a little bit. Just notice that you can see the new intake through the vent in the bonnet, and I think that looks well cool. Just about. Cheers, performance. Firstly, I'm going to take off the intake hoses because all this is going to have to come off. The throttle body is going to have to come off, and then hopefully this. Right, that's off. Now we're going to start unplugging some of the electrical connectors. So as much as I said that it's not particularly going to be a guide, I'm going to drop in every now and then in the video just to give you a bit more in-depth kind of info of how I did things, because I feel that now that I've done it, there's some good info which other people could be using just to get the same results. With this part, so the throttle body is literally one connector and the 4 bolts surrounding the throttle body. Then that should come right off. The little connector's got a kind of plastic little tab that you pull back and then pull the connector out. And the dipstick, there's basically one bolt at the top. You can see it. It's quite hard to access with a ratchet. If you've got a spanner you can get it off. I think it's an 8mm. And then there's one down in the middle connecting to a mount for like the coolant line. It's a little bit lower. It just runs alongside with the oil dipstick. I got underneath the car to get that one. Again, 8mm. And then there's the bracket for the dipstick, which if you follow Craig's guide you'll be able to see it better. It's a bolt that's just mounted to the sump, I think. But yeah, follow his guide for that. I'm not going to do so much of a how-to to do this part of the taking the connectors out and getting the manifold off, because if you want to do that, literally I'd suggest watching this guy. He's going to do a much better kind of guide than what I'd be able to do. But when we get down to the PCV hose, I will show you what I'm doing then, so that you're able to do that, because he doesn't actually change it on this. Another thing I'm doing as well, I'm disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery, because with the changes we're going to be doing, the ECU needs to reset. And basically leaving this off for 10 minutes, I believe, is a reset for the ECU. So hopefully that will reset, and it will start reading the proper air readings when we've got all the parts on. So far, that's off. The throttle body's off. The oil dipstick is off. We're starting to free up some space. I'm about to tag up the electrical connectors and then attempt to probably take the first bolt off of this. I'm now at the stage where I've got quite a lot of the wiring out, all labelled up down here. Got a few sensors off, and I'm going to have to actually cut free kind of parts of the loom where it's cable tied on, just to allow me some space to work with. Got the first bolt of the manifold out. It's the one underneath the engine. The easiest one, funnily enough. So here's a picture of the manifold after I've taken it off. The manifold's a little bit different compared to the one on Craig's. Craig's, the bolts kind of go either side of each intake. So you got kind of diagonal, 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 if that makes any sense. They're similar on the ST150, except from 2 bolts on the right hand side are directly above and below each other. So bolts 2, 5, 7 and 8 are very easy. You can see them literally as they are. They're not hidden behind anything. 7 and 8, they are by the throttle body. You can easily get them with a ratchet without any extensions or anything like that. 5 and 2, you'll need an extension. You'll be able to see them. They're sitting above on top of the inlet manifold. So yeah, you'll need a extension to kind of push through and unscrew them, and they should come out fairly easy. Them 4 bolts were very easy for me. Now 3 is also a very easy bolt. All you need to do is get underneath the engine. If you look at Craig's video, he's got quite a good explanation of where that is. I didn't actually record that. Number 1, probably the trickiest. I took the headlight off to gain access, and I'll put a picture up here of what I did to try and get to it. I went in through the headlight with just the extension without the ratchet attached. I kind of went underneath a bit of the kind of wiring loom, and then kind of straightened it out and got it on the nut on the other end, and then attached a ratchet and unscrewed it. Lost that bolt in the engine bay. Number 4, there's this weird kind of triangle cutout on the middle of the inlet manifold. Now with that little triangle, what I basically did was got again, just the extension on its own, levered it down, and then up through into the triangle. When I was into the triangle, I was literally going in blind until I felt it connect with the nut. And then when it was connected to the nut, I kind of rammed the ratchet in there, got it connected and unscrewed that. Again, lost that bolt in the under the inlet manifold somewhere. I had to collect it after the manifold was off. 5 we covered. 6 underneath 5 is quite awkward. You can see it, but it's got like this weird little lip. You can't see it on the photo really, but there is a weird little lip that's in the way. Again, it's about feeding that that extension underneath, getting it on the head of the bolt first, and then attaching the ratchet, unbolting it, and then winding it out. I've got all the bolts off. Like Craig in the video explained, you will lose a few, but it's still being held on by a few electrical connectors and a bit of the loom. But yeah, we've got movement. I'm just going to try and work my way around, figure out what's still holding it on, remove that, and then get down to the PCV. Look at that. Inlet manifold's pretty much off. It's actually the pipe that I need to change holding it into place. But what I've discovered, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Going to be able to see it? There is a big split on the pipe, so we are in the right area. Now the pipe's the only thing holding it on, so I'm going to cut it. It's that. I had to cut the hose, but it's that. Now this, camera's a bit zoomed in. This was the original tear. So yeah, it was what the issue is, and it was all the way along the actual hose. So I've managed to get the hose and the valve off. Now I cut it because it was really difficult to get on the car, but you can see there that big slit all the way up there and all the way up there. So what's happened is obviously that split, but that's telling the ECU that there's more air in the system. So obviously the ECU is trying to put more fuel into the system, thus creating the revs. But yeah, at least that is the issue, and that's getting replaced with a much nicer kind of reinforced Rose Motorsport hose. I'm also replacing this valve as well. I've taken the valve off. It's the first part to get replaced. They say that you should shake it. You can hear like a little ball bearing or something inside. That's apparently it's a good valve still, but I'm down there. I'm going to replace it anyway. It's quite cool though, because you can see all like, if you can see too well in there. Well, let me get a light. You can see proper into the intake. See the valves there. There's a bit of dirt on here that I'm going to clean up before I put the intake back on. So this is me putting the new valve back in. Just so you know, with the valve, there's two little clips that sit between here and here. What you have to do, you pry a flathead or a blade underneath, unclip the clip, and then this will be free. And it sits on there like that. There we go. New PCV valve. To get the manifold out as well, just in case anyone's kind of following this for a guide, I had to loosen the fuel rail bolts, one there, because the manifold wasn't coming out afterwards. There's also, I don't know if you can see it too well, there's a line, a coolant line that goes from here, and I've unplugged it here, but be careful because if you raise this too low, the coolant will come out of here, but if you raise it too high, the coolant will come out of here. So I've got a little puddle of coolant now I've got to clean up, but this just sits right in the way of here, so I was getting in the way. I've just taken it off. So we're going to install the hose on the inlet manifold first, because that's easier than trying to get this side on, then get that side on. Do you know what? I think it might actually be easier the other way around. I'm going to switch that on there quickly, and then, because I've got this loose in my hand, I can kind of manoeuvre this a bit easier than that. Let me quickly switch this around. Right, now I've got it on that side. I'm going to attempt to get the inlet in position and tighten this up. Managed to get it on both sides. I've had the inlet manifold up like this, whilst I've managed to tighten it out both ends. It's nice and tight. Now I'm just going to do the reinstallation of the inlet manifold, which I don't think is going to be fun, but let's get it done. After fuffling around with that, I think the easiest way is to connect it all up on here and literally just press the valve in, because that just literally presses into place. So it's all tight on here already, and then we can press the valve in, and that will lock into place. It's easier than either trying to tighten it up on here or trying to tighten it up on the inlet, because it's now tight anyway. So hopefully that goes on pretty easy. This bit was actually the fiddliest part of the job. I didn't do any of the other methods I tried here. What I actually did, I attached a PCV hose and valve to the engine, put the inlet manifold on, then when the inlet manifold was on, with the gap in between the inlet manifold and the engine, I kind of slivered down, pushed on the hose, and then tightened up the Jubilee clip around the hose, which I found was the easiest way, because I had really bad issues with the PCV valve, just keep popping off. So I just had to make sure that valve was secure, and then work kind of the inlet and the pipe around it. You ain't going to be able to see it, but I've managed to get the hose and the valve back in place. You can't really see it at all. I can assure you it's there. This is still loose. Now it's time to get all the bolts back in, all the connectors together, and all the other bits together. Sorry, I've just had some lunch, I'm hiccuping. But yeah, I actually took out the headlight as well because it gave me a bit more access for one of the bolts that was really difficult on this side. So we got 2 of the bolts back in, the manifold's kind of in place. I'm having to tape around the socket and the bolt because I've literally lost maybe like 10 bolts, not 10 bolts but dropped bolts 10 times into the engine bay, and I've had to take the manifold out twice just to go and collect bolts. So maybe blue tack would be a good idea, but for now I'm using tape to hold it in place just so they don't fall. Putting the manifold back on, again straight away just tape your bolts, it's so much easier, you won't lose them. Like I said, I had to take the manifold out twice. Reinstallation was exactly the same as taking it off, all of the different angles and stuff I tried again. It was a little bit harder because you've got the extension and then you've got the bolt on the end. But if you've got a bit of tape with the bolt, you're not going to lose it, but plus the bolt has a little bit of movement. So what I was doing, I was threading the bolt in with the extension by hand, and then obviously when it threaded enough, I could kind of get the ratchet behind on the extension because you had enough space because of the movement of the bolt going into the thread, and then obviously tying it up and the tape will come loose. The manifold is back on. Do you know what? Taping the bolts, look at the mess. Taping the bolts to the actual socket saved my life and all of that. It was so much easier. Manifold's back on. Need to put everything else back in now, which I'm going to do a time lapse of because there's not been so much hands-on that you've really seen. Yeah, I'll time lapse putting it all back together. Just quickly, there's one connector that sits underneath the manifold that you'll probably find holds the manifold on, which I had to disconnect. I forgot to connect that up on the reinstallation, and I didn't realise until I was tightening up the bolt for the dipstick. So it's quite difficult to get underneath the car and kind of feed that through. It was like hidden behind a lot and it's tucked up right on the manifold. I suggest you try and find that one whilst the manifold's off loose, whilst you haven't got all the bolts in, connect it up and then put everything in. It's by the throttle body side, so it's, I'm not sure what connector it is, but it's under the bottom by the throttle body. The only thing left to put on is the dipstick, and literally it's a bolt at the top, a bolt in the middle and a bolt at the bottom underneath the car for this bracket. I'm not going to record it because it's kind of awkward to see, but yeah, you got a bolt here, a bolt underneath which is just there, and one underneath for the bracket, and then we're going to start the car up. So I'm all finished. Forget how low my car actually can sit. But yeah, I'm all finished, and I'll check the back of the car. I haven't started it up yet, I was just making sure the stuff's off. But yeah, I'll check the back of the car one day after I wash it, after I put the new badges on. Bird shout on it. So this is the true test. I haven't started it up. I'm going to let it prime first because a little bit of fuel come out when I was messing with the fuel rail. So oh, everything's reset. I'm gonna have to set up the radio and everything. Right. Yeah, this is kind of exciting because like this could fix the issue. Need to wait for the car to warm up properly, because it sits at a little bit high idle until the car's warmed up. In the meanwhile, I'm going to set up the radio and I'll get back to you. Ignore how messy I am at the moment. This is what happened during the day. But I'm going to take it out for a drive, let it warm up quicker. Then, yeah, I'm going to test the idle. The idle seems fine at the moment. It's just warming up. It was the sticky issue that I had, so like it would come back down and then jump up to like another 1,500 revs, then come back down. At the moment, it's not doing that at all. Right, now the car's warmed up a bit. Every single time I rev, comes back to idle where it should be. feels like a different car to drive. Like it's really strange how such a little thing can affect the whole car. Like when I used to pull up to a junction, it'd almost feel like, not feel, but it'd almost seem like to another car that I was just revving, like for the sake of revving, because it was like going up to almost 2k sometimes. But yeah, so like it's so much better now, so much. My dials have reset, but my average fuel used to be 27.4 miles to the gallon. Now I'm curious whether or not that's going to go up if it's not, do you know what I mean, revving as much in first gear. So I'm going to keep an eye on this, and I'll keep you updated to see whether or not the fuel does go up. But I'm properly happy. This car, like, I've had it for a year. This job's been needing to be done for a year. But yeah, we've gotten to the bottom of it. It was the PCV hose. Now I've driven 151 miles since I changed the hose and the valve on the car. And I am getting better mileage. It's given me around 30 to 31 miles to the gallon. And what I've done some working out of the savings I'm actually getting. And basically, last time I filled up, it was £1.22 per litre, and this has a 45 litre tank, meaning it costs £54.90 to fill up. So when I was getting 27.4 miles to the gallon, I was getting 269.45 miles to a full tank. Now, at 30.5 miles to the gallon, I'm getting 301.91 miles to the gallon. So that's an extra 32.42 miles per tank I'm getting than I used to before I did this fix. It also means that I was paying 20p per mile when I was doing 27.4 miles to the gallon, and now I'm paying 18p per mile at 30.5 miles to the gallon. And each time I fill up the tank, I'm actually saving £6.33. So around 4 or 5 times of filling up this tank, I've actually paid for the parts that it took to fix this car, just in the savings I'm making on petrol. So yeah, it's just a few little facts that if you're thinking about doing this, your miles per gallon will increase probably around 3 or 4, which is really good because you get some savings. Also, I was getting 6.027 miles per litre at 27.4 miles to the gallon, and now I'm getting 6.7315 miles per litre at 30.5 miles to the gallon. So it's all increasing, I'm saving money, and my car works. And it is idling completely fine now, there's no issues with it. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone in the comments that suggested to do this to the car. It took me, in all, about 6 hours, which is probably quite long to get an inlet off, but I haven't got the tools, I'm not a mechanic. Do you know what I mean? I'm just your average Joe. Again, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like. Thank you to everyone again. It's really helped me, and yeah, I'll catch you next time.